I need to talk about it because on the surface, it sounds like another one of those transfer rumours you scroll past. Another French kid, another League One link, another Arsenal are interested headline that goes absolutely nowhere. But stay with me because when I actually dug into this one, properly dug in, there are layers here that nobody is really unpacking. And that's exactly why we're doing this. The name is João Ichise, 22 years old, central midfielder, Stade Rennais, and allegedly, Arsenal want him this summer. Now, before you roll your eyes, I know, Mediafoot broke the story. One French outlet, not Sky Sports, not Fabrizio, not The Athletic, one outlet. So straight away, credibility question marks are in the air, and we're going to address that. But here's the thing. The broader picture around why Arsenal would even be looking at a player like this, that part is completely real. And that's the conversation I actually want to have today. Because this isn't really just about Cisse. It's about Arsenal's midfield, what it looks like right now, what it needs to look like, and whether the decisions Arteta makes this summer could be the difference between a dynasty and a team that peaked just a little bit too soon. That's the real story. And we're going to get into all of it. I'm James. If you're new here, this channel is where Arsenal actually gets dissected properly. No agenda, no sensationalism, just honest football thinking. If that's your kind of content, hit subscribe. It costs you nothing, and it means everything for the channel. And if you're already part of the community, you already know what we're doing here. Let's go. So, João Ichise, born January 31st, 2004, in Juvy-sur-Orge, just outside Paris, came through the academies at US Grigny and CS Bretigny before landing at Rennes youth system. And for anyone who doesn't know what Rennes Academy means, let me just remind you quickly. Eduardo Camavinga, Rennes. Ousmane Dembele, Rennes. Desire Doué, the kid PSG paid serious money for back in the summer of 2024. Rennes. So when a player comes through that system and starts getting minutes in League One, you do not dismiss it. You just don't. That academy has a track record that very few clubs in Europe can match. They find raw talent, they develop it, and then the big clubs come calling. And that's exactly what's happening here. Cisse got his debut in February 2024. 3-1 win over Clermont. He came in, did his thing, and just stayed. Kept getting minutes, kept impressing. And this season, 2025 to 26, he's made over 20 appearances for Rennes. He's become a regular. He's not a squad filler. He's a genuine part of how that team functions. 6'2", box-to-box midfielder, can play as a 6 or an 8, technically comfortable on the ball, works relentlessly off it. And here's the quote that really stuck with me. Lorenz Assignen, his former teammate at Rennes, now at Stuttgart, spoke about Cisse recently. And he said something like, you always see Rennes producing top young players. It just takes the right moment and the right coach. João has been working relentlessly, and now he's reaping the rewards. Now, I know that sounds like standard teammate praise, but the detail in that statement matters. The right moment, the right coach, because that's actually a warning, as much as it's a compliment. It's saying this kid's development is heavily context dependent. He needed the right environment to flourish. And the question is, does he get that environment if he moves in the summer? Or does he arrive at a new club and get swallowed by the pressure? That's not a reason to not sign him, but it's a question worth sitting with. Now, let me give you the numbers, and I want to be honest about them, because some of the coverage around this story has been, let's say, generous. This season in League One, Cisse has played 21 matches, 950 minutes, 0 goals, 0 assists, 0 and 0. Now, before you say, well, he's a defensive midfielder, yes, but even at 6, you'd want to see some attacking contribution in the data. Expected assists of 0.58, which tells you he's getting into positions to create. He's creating 10 chances this season. The output just isn't converting. His passing accuracy sits around 80%. For context, that's not impressive for a top-level central midfielder. You'd want that in the mid to high 80s if you're playing for Arsenal. And he loses possession roughly 9 times every 46 minutes. For a team that presses as intensely as Arsenal do and demands ball retention, that number needs to come down. So the stats are not blowing anybody away right now. But, and this is important, the profile is undeniable. There's a reason Bayer Leverkusen are sniffing around. There's a reason Eintracht Frankfurt want him. These are not clubs that waste time on players who aren't going somewhere. And there's a reason Arteta is apparently a genuine admirer. The tactical intelligence, the physical tools, the ability to receive in tight spaces, the willingness to do the unglamorous work. Those things don't always show up in a clean stat line, especially at 22, especially in a Rennes team that's been inconsistent this season. So I'm not dismissing the profile. What I'm saying is you have to see this clearly. You have to understand what you're buying. This is a project player, a high ceiling, medium floor signing, not an instant fix. And this is where the Arsenal context becomes everything. Let's be real about where the midfield actually is right now. Declan Rice, still one of the best central midfielders in world football. Non-negotiable. He plays every game. No conversation. Martin Zubimendi. When he came in last summer, I was excited. Really excited. Because the idea of Rice and Zubimendi as your engine room, that's top 4 in Europe territory. And they've delivered. That pairing has been brilliant. But behind them, Christian Norgard. Good player. Experienced. Covers ground, reads the game well. But here's the thing, nobody wants to say, Norgard has not started a single Premier League game since he arrived. Not one. He's there for rotation, for cup games. He's a safety net, not a solution. And then there's Merino, Mikel Merino, who, by the way, has been absolutely everywhere this season. Midfield, false nine, linking play, scoring goals. He's been Arsenal's Swiss Army knife. 6 goals and 3 assists in 33 appearances before the injury. He was one of the most valuable players in Arteta's squad. Genuinely. And then foot fracture, surgery, February, gone. And the latest update is actually slightly more positive. Arteta said last Friday that Merino is out of his boot, doing exercises no pain, which is great. But we're talking summer at the earliest for a return to full fitness. And even then, you don't just slot a player back in after that kind of surgery and expect them to immediately function at top level. So the midfield depth question is real. It's not manufactured for content, it's genuinely there. Odegaard has been dealing with knee problems. Eze had a calf issue that derailed his momentum at a crucial time. The squad has been stretched in a way that has genuinely affected results. The Bournemouth defeat, the FA Cup exit to Southampton. These aren't accidents. Arsenal's midfield depth has been under pressure all season, and Arteta knows it, which is why names like Cisse are being explored. But here's the part that I find most interesting, and I want you to think about this carefully. The contract situation. Cisse signed a new 5-year deal at Rennes in September 2025. He is under contract until June 2030. September 2025. 5 years. That means Rennes sat down with this kid, looked him in the eye and said, "You are our future. We are investing in you. We are protecting you." And now, barely 6 months later, clubs are circling. That tells me one of two things. Either Rennes expected this, they knew interest would come, and they tied him down to ensure they'd get maximum value when it did, which is smart business, which means any club that wants Cisse this summer is going to pay through the nose. There's no leverage on the buyer's side. None. Or, and this is the other interpretation, the interest is coming faster than Rennes anticipated, and they're now in a position of power they didn't even fully plan for. Either way, Rennes hold every card. His estimated transfer value is somewhere between 15 and 19 million euros right now. But you add the contract length, the competition between clubs, and the fact that multiple Bundesliga sides are involved, the actual asking price is going to be significantly higher than that valuation suggests. So he's a cheaper alternative to Tonali narrative that some outlets are pushing. I'd pump the brakes on that. Sandro Tonali at Newcastle, yeah, he'd cost a fortune, probably north of 80, 90 million, maybe more, depending on how this season ends. I get why Arsenal might be looking for alternatives, but Cisse isn't going to be cheap either. Not with a 2030 contract, not with Leverkusen and Frankfurt also in the frame. You're probably talking 35 to 50 million, maybe more if there's a bidding war. Is that money well spent on a 22-year-old with 0 goals this season who's still developing? Tell me what you think in the comments, because genuinely, I'm curious where you land on this. Let me talk about the tactical fit for a second, because this is where it gets interesting for me. Arteta runs a system that demands a lot from central midfielders. The positional discipline when building from the back, the ability to carry the ball past the first line of press, the split-second decisions in tight areas. Rice handles it naturally. Zubimendi handles it naturally. They've been playing these kinds of systems their whole careers. It's second nature. Cisse, at his level, has shown elements of all of that. The long ball accuracy is decent. He's got 26 tackles this season, which tells you he's active defensively. He carries the ball forward. He's got the physical tools, 6'2", athletic, high work rate, but the passing accuracy concern matters in this context. Arsenal's style is not forgiving. When you lose the ball in a Guardiola or an Arteta system, the shape breaks, the press can't work, you get exposed on the counter. 9 dispossessions per 46 minutes isn't catastrophic, but it's not what you want from a player who would be playing in one of the most demanding pressing systems in world football. Now, does that get coached out? Potentially, yes. Arteta has shown he can develop players. The way Rice has evolved at Arsenal, the way he's gone from a defensive midfielder into almost a quarterback role, that's elite coaching. Arteta can raise a player's ceiling. But the question is, time. How long does development take? And can Arsenal afford a year of a player finding his feet at this level? That's the risk. Let me give you a scenario. A what if. What if Cisse comes in this summer and it takes him a full season to properly adapt? That's not unusual. That's actually pretty normal for players making a step like this. Zubimendi took time to settle. Nørgaard hasn't even really settled yet. In that scenario, Arsenal have spent, let's say, 40 million on a player who's basically a depth option for the first 12 months. And Nørgaard is already that. And Miles Lewis-Skelly, who I love, by the way, is developing into that role from the other end. So is Cisse genuinely filling a gap? Or is he arriving into a space that's already being managed? Now, flip it. What if Cisse comes in and immediately clicks? What if Arteta's coaching gets the passing accuracy up to 86, 87% within 3 months? What if the tactical intelligence that Arteta clearly sees in him translates immediately? What if Cisse at Arsenal is the same leap that Rodri made when he went to City? Because that comparison isn't crazy. Rodri was not Rodri when he arrived. He became Rodri through the system. Through the coaching, through the environment. Could Cisse be that? I'm not saying yes. I'm not predicting that. But I'm saying the upside is real. And if you're building a squad for 3, 4, 5 years, not just next season, then spending 40 million on a 22-year-old who could become your starting 6 in 2 years is actually smart business. The problem is Arsenal can't just be building for the future right now. They're right here, right now. Title race, Champions League. This is the moment. And the decisions you make this summer have to serve both timelines, the now and the later. That's a hard balance to get right. Now, I want to address the elephant in the room, the credibility question. This story came from one source, Media Foot, a French outlet, not Fabrizio Romano, not David Ornstein, not The Athletic. One outlet, and I think that matters. Multiple English outlets picked it up. But here's the thing. They all trace back to the same original report. There's no second independent confirmation. No agent quotes to an English journalist. No Arsenal have been in contact from anyone inside the club. And Arsenal News, who I respect for being honest about these things, floated the possibility that this could be agent-driven, which I think is worth taking seriously. Think about it. Cisse's agents see the interest from Leeds. They see Frankfurt. They see Leverkusen. And they want to upgrade the narrative. So they drop Arsenal's name into a trusted French contact. Arsenal are Premier League leaders. Arsenal are potentially Champions League semi-finalists. That name attached to their client opens doors, increases the fee, creates urgency. That happens a lot more than fans realise. So I'm not saying Arteta hasn't watched Cisse. I actually think he probably has. Arteta watches everyone. But there's a difference between Arteta has flagged this player in a scouting meeting and Arsenal entering the race. That gap between a club noticing and a club actively pursuing is enormous. Right now, based on the sourcing, I'd say Arsenal are probably in the category of interested observers, not active pursuers. That could change, but that's where I'd put them today. What does this mean for Leeds, though? Because Leeds United are in an interesting position here. They've apparently already spoken to Cisse's representatives, made direct contact, shown genuine intent. And if they get promoted this season, which is still very much in play, then they become a genuinely attractive landing spot for a player who wants Premier League football, but might not be ready to start for Arsenal yet. Think about that from Cisse's perspective. He goes to Arsenal, he's a squad player, he fights for minutes behind Rice and Zubimendi, he develops in training, he might play in cups, but starts in the league, rare, for the first couple of years at least. He goes to Leeds, if they're promoted, he's central, he's starting every week. He's the guy. He gets game time, he gets rhythm, he gets experience. For a 22-year-old, that second path might actually be the better one for his development, for his career. And that's not a slight on Arsenal. That's just the reality of what it means to sign for a squad that's competing for the title and the Champions League. The question is whether Cisse prioritizes development minutes or prestige. And at 22, with the right people around him, the correct answer is probably development, unless Arteta convinces him otherwise, which brings us back to the coaching conversation. Here's my actual verdict on this. Jawee Cisse is a genuinely interesting player. He's not hype, he's not manufactured, he comes from a real academy with a real track record, and the profile, physically, tactically, technically, is the kind of thing that Arsenal scouting would absolutely flag. But for this summer, I have questions. The stats need to improve. The passing accuracy, the ball retention. These things matter enormously in Arteta's system, and they're not there yet. The fee is going to be significant. Rennes are not selling cheap, not with a 2030 contract, not with multiple clubs interested. And the sourcing on this story is thin. One outlet, no second confirmation. Possible agent involvement. I'd treat this as a genuine lead to monitor, not a done deal or even a firm pursuit. What I do believe, Arsenal will sign a central midfielder this summer. That's almost certain. Marino's injury has highlighted the vulnerability. Nørgaard hasn't fully delivered on his role. And if the Tonali deal is too expensive, which it very likely is, then a younger, developing profile makes sense as an alternative. Whether that player is Cisse, I genuinely don't know. And I'll be honest with you, I think the story is at least partially inflated right now. But is it worth keeping your eye on? Absolutely. And the bigger picture here is something I think about a lot. Arsenal's transfer strategy under Arteta has been genuinely impressive. The hits have outweighed the misses. Rice, Saliba before that, Zubimendi. These are proper footballers who've elevated the squad. But the next phase of building is going to be harder because the obvious targets all cost enormous money. Tonali will cost a fortune. Mbumo, Gordon. These names all carry price tags that make the board nervous. So, do you go premium? Or do you go smart? Do you spend 80 million on Tonali and get a proven commodity? Or do you spend 40 million on Cisse and potentially unearth the next Camavinga? Both are defensible, both carry risk, and both say something different about the kind of club Arsenal are trying to become. That's the transfer philosophy question underneath all of this. And I'd love to know where you stand. Drop it in the comments. Do you go Tonali or do you go Cisse? Or do you think there's a completely different name out there that Arsenal should be targeting this summer? Because that conversation, that's what I want to have next. If this video gave you something to think about, if you see this transfer story differently now than you did 10 minutes ago, then hit the like button. It helps more people find the channel. It helps us keep doing this properly. And subscribe if you haven't already, because we're deep in the business end of the season right now. Champions League quarter-final, second leg coming up. Manchester City away, Newcastle at home, title race, European run. There is so much content coming, and we are not going to waste a single minute of it. This is James, and I'll see you in the next one.